On this episode of the APWA Roving Reporter, we visited Anna, Texas, to see how growth affects a small town's public works operation. Matt Harper here with APWA, and we're in Anna, Texas today, talking to Jim Prochi, the city manager. We had planned on having the public works director here, but winter weather is here, and he is out right now in the winter weather. We're hoping to have him later on, but we want to start off with talking to Jim about the growth of Anna. Anna is a town north of Texas. Population is about just shy of 20,000.
Yeah,
is that
around
right?
20,000.
So in the last 10 or so years, the growth rate of Anna was at 115%. The average growth rate of a city in the United States is 7%. What were some of the drivers of that growth?
Well, first of all, you're in North Texas, and we have our own economy here, and so things are thriving. People are coming from all over the place. So, and there's a lot of business, and it's business friendly and development friendly. So, and there's a lot of land here, and the land is relatively cheap when you look at other metropolitan areas around the country, and the housing is relatively cheap, under the same conditions. So, if you look at places like Denver and Phoenix, and places that have loop roads wrapped around them. You'll find that there's a lot of value here, especially in North Texas.
We're not huge, right? We're not a big public works department. There's 30 some odd people up there. I've worked for a public works department that had hundreds of people in it. And so you have a lot more resources. You can work miracles, right? We work miracles with a small staff because we've employed good people with good values, and we focus on making sure that the maintenance is taken care of, but there's people that are also focused on the growth elements.
What is Anna's strategy when it comes to hiring employees, both entry level and professional level, right now when the worker shortage seems to be hitting everybody so hard?
So there's a couple things that we've been successful in doing. First, our compensation plan has helped. Okay, so we have basically a compensation plan that it's computerized, it's automated, and it's based on 15 compensable factors. So every job, every position in every department, including public works, is graded, and then those grades are plugged in based on those compensable factors. So pretty much we're compared to the region, and then we're adjusted for population and we're adjusted for market, right? So there are some market conditions as well. And so that works out really well because it's been able to give us, the first part of it is to have a good compensation plan. We've also looked at benefits, and we've done the same thing. We've studied what everybody else is doing, and we remain competitive in offering benefits. So those are the first two pieces, if you will, the pay and the benefits. And then with the entry level, we like everybody else have had problems, right? So I'm going to say basically for the entry level jobs, you're not going to find folks that are going to commute 30 or 40 miles to come pay to 12 to 14 dollar an hour type jobs. So we've entered into discussions with our school boards in the region, right? And what we've been able to do is to start looking at the opportunities for those kids who are not necessarily college bound, but they're good students or they're good kids, and they live here and they need a job. So we'll grow our own. So I can teach a young man or a young lady how to run a backhoe, how to drive a truck, how to patch a pothole, how to fix a lift station pump, and those types of things. And we can get them licensed and we can get them educated. And if they grow with us, that's great. If they go somewhere else, well, we've added to the Public Works family somewhere in the element, and that's okay too. But we don't always look outside, if we can grow our own. In the mid-level jobs, it's a combination of both. We look at like, okay, is there somebody on the crew that we have moved up? Most of our inspection staff are ones that we built our own. They were like either a crew leader in a public works department, or they're a plumber or that sort of thing. And we've said, if you guys want these opportunities, high growth cities will present a lot of opportunities. So when you come work for a place that's moving rapidly, there's going to be opportunity for growth amongst in your career, so to speak. The population of our staff has doubled in the 3.5 years. In the next 3.5 years, I expect it to double again. So there's going to be great opportunities. So we sell that message. We tell people we want to be preferred choice employer.
Jim, you went over training, retention, recruitment. What other resources are out there to help public works departments?
Well, some of the stuff that we do here in Texas, and I'm sure it's available in other states as well. I knew there was in Florida where I work part of, was using the LTAP centers, right? The local technical area assistance program, right? And they offer free training, right? We take advantage of that. To plug APWA, we had talked earlier, we have a lot of programs that we do as well. We have a couple of conferences a year. We have, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we probably are the biggest branch in a chapter, having well over 700 members. We do a lot of things locally where we have one-day symposiums that will offer 35 technical sessions in one day at a very, 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 very low cost.
What can APWA accreditation do for a small town, or a small town that is growing so rapidly that they're not going to be so small anymore?
Well, as you may recall, I've been involved with a couple of accreditations in places where I've been before. The efforts of accreditation are going to be a legacy, right? I've been through it several times, right? And it's a team building exercise on top of making sure that you're looking at continuous improvement, and you have best practices in place, and everybody understands what their role is. Any good team, right? Whether it's the public works team or a football team or a basketball team, everybody knows their role. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows who they can depend on, and accreditation ties all those loose ends. Now, it may not be in the manual; it doesn't say those things, but if you experience it, and if you talk to anybody that's been through the process, you will find that it will bring together a team quicker than anything that I've been. Because when they fought a battle together and they succeed, there's a bond there that can't be broken, and everybody looks out for one another. And so that's the process we're putting into play here and everywhere else that I've ever been.
You said there's some creative things, some different things you can do with Fleet, or you've done with Fleet. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, sure. When it comes to Fleet here, because we're growing so fast, we have a need to add vehicles quickly. And anybody who buys vehicles knows that can be a challenge, depending on whether it's a police Tahoe or it's a pickup truck for public works. No matter what the use of the vehicle is, if they're not in production, are they available? How can you get them? Sometimes you got to wait for the production lines to produce them. And so we've entered into an agreement with a third-party provider, and we're able to get vehicles quickly. And we can do this operationally because the cost has been reduced. So what we've done is we use the purchasing power of local government to buy the vehicles cheaper. So, for example, the $60,000 pickup truck, that four-wheel drive pickup truck that you're going to buy or I'm going to buy personally, we get that at a government price, okay? And then we manage it through the lease program that it's bought with our purchasing power but by the leasing company, and we pay basic and owning and operating. We maintain them. We do the basic oil changes and tire changes and brake jobs and minimal things, but anything outside of that is warranty for the first 3 years. And then before the 3 years is up, and while the original values are still more than what we paid for it, we sell them at a profit. So last year alone, we probably netted somewhere in the neighborhood about $50,000 in profits. And police cars and pickup trucks are all maintained. We do not have any major repairs. We're not replacing transmissions or engines because we get rid of these vehicles when they're still really, really good, low mileage, clean them up and flip them over. The employees like it because they're always driving nice vehicles. The fleet looks good because they're always basically nothing's older than 3 years old. And we actually profit at the end of it because if we buy that $60,000 pickup truck for $45,000, we sell it before reaches that value to which we paid for it, or at least as close as we can get to run it as long as we can get.
Currently, Anna provides some of the services. Anna provides solid waste, sewer and water, streets, and you said that recently you added facilities. Have those were those recent additions because of the growth? Were those things you added because you can only see them becoming more and more necessary down the road, or were those in place when you arrived?
So we have solid waste, water and sewer kind of in place already. Mm-hmm. We from the water side, for example, we have multiple well sites. We produce our own water, we treat our own water, but we also partner with a regional provider of water that probably provides about half of all water for water. Similarly for sewer, we have a sewer plant, but we also partner with a regional provider for about half of our sewers. Solid waste, we have recently done a revamping of that entire system. We have a cart system here, landfill that's relatively close, trying to keep the costs down to our neighbors. And so those things were in place, but we've refined them. We've installed master plans for both the water and sewer because we're under such high growth, working on things like transmission mains, planning for a new sewer plant, regional sewer plant. Actually, when we do this sewer plant, it's not only going to service our city, but it's going to service surrounding cities. So we'll be a regional provider of sewer for area outside of our 65 square miles. So those are things that we're adding and working on. And on the internal services, we've added the fleet, which we've talked about a little bit, and we've recently added facilities because when I got here, we had a bunch of small buildings scattered about, and you had a janitorial service that came in real quick and kind of did a little cleanup, and hell, I've even taken out the garbage myself, that type of thing. But we're moving into a 52,000 square foot facility here in about 2 weeks, and that's a little bit more of a challenge. So, and we're still maintaining some of the old buildings for other uses. So that has become a grander thing, So rather than contracting out, we're looking at bringing that service internally. We've looked at the cost, and we think we can save a few bucks. And so we'll be doing that, and it'll not only be just your janitorial stuff, but through the Public Works Department, but as well as any type of repairs and maintenance, filters, that sort of thing. So that's one of the things we're adding on. We've added GIS to our Public Works Department as well. So we've already done a lot of work with that, with some heat mapping stuff, comparative analysis for a lot of different things that we're looking at to kind of bring this, this department in this city into the current century.
Is Anna taking in any growing outwards like any of the unincorporated areas?
There is. We have pre-annexation agreements with a lot of areas, and what drives those opportunities is our ability to provide water and sewer. So if you're out in some of the outlying areas, it's difficult because nobody has the water and nobody has the sewer, but we're building it and we're adding to it and we're amending it daily, right? So as that opportunity presents itself, these other areas are looking at. We have some big developers that we've been talking to on a national level, and if I mentioned their names, people in other parts of the country would say, "Oh yeah, we know who that is. They built here, they built there," that type of thing. That are looking at us for those types of opportunities. There's one international company that we're doing business with now that's doing 3,000 acre development that's probably going to have 6,000 homes in it and probably 300 or 400 acres of commercial. They're going to put their American headquarters there at some point. And sports facilities and all those types of things that are coming here. So we're building a city. If you ask people to write down a list of all the things that you expect to see built in a city, those are the things that are on our list. Those are the things that are on our target. We built facilities this year. Next year we're starting another fire station. We're starting a community center. We're starting a library, all in the next year, and ball fields, sports facilities. So like I said, when I said we're building a city, we're building a city. All the elements thereof: trails, parks, You name it, it's on the list.
Do your levels of service change as you grow and expand services and just provide more for more people?
We target to try to keep the same levels of service, right? And so sometimes that can be hindered. We've been challenged with COVID like everybody else over the last 2 years, right? At times we've actually had to close facilities because we had so many people infected, and because we were scattered around, we isolated. Here in this building, we didn't cross pollinate, so to speak. So we've been, a little bit lucky. We haven't had too much illness, but when we look at, in the long run, the different opportunities that we've had as we grow, to be able to be agile. There are times where we've had, where we've, maybe fall a little bit behind, only because it's like, okay, it's moving faster than we can acquire people. Some of the things that we've looked at doing is overhire, and what that looks like is if we know what our turnover rates are, people coming and going. If we're in a position where we lose, a dozen people a year in say a particular area, knowing that that's going to happen, whether it's retirements or people getting promotions or going to other places, we would anticipate, actively recruiting on a constant basis. We do that in public safety, where we're constantly recruiting, right? Because it takes time to process, right? So if you leave today, and if it takes me, if there's this administrative lag on how long it's going to take to replace you, if I'm actively recruiting and have people in the hopper all along, and we've used a lot of different resources to recruit people. So I've been fortunate to have a really strong network. I probably have 5,000 followers on LinkedIn, a lot of people all over the country, and I've taught certified public manager course. So I meet a lot of the professional level people through that opportunity for years. So when there's something coming open, I say, hey, I'm planning for these things. And even in our budget process, right, we don't wait until October 1 every year to go do our hiring. If we need something now, we're chasing it now. If we know we're going to target something in October, we start talking about it early so people know that there's going to be an opportunity and they're watching us.
Speaking of chasing funds, I asked you before if Anna was going to go after any of the infrastructure bill funds, the IIJA money. Do you think Anna's going to be pursuing any of that?
Well, we've taken the opportunity to pursue every possible avenue to get money from anywhere we can to leverage those types of things. So in North Texas, the distributor of those types of funds goes through the Council of Governments, which acts as the metropolitan planning organization for the region over a 16 county area. And so, we've had a presence there. I have served the North Texas Council of Governments myself on several different committees over the years to stay in touch with what goes on there. So we have strong relationships there. And that's where all federal funds get funneled down through in this particular region. So yeah, we've actively watched that. Likewise, on the state level, through the Texas Department of Transportation, there's monies available there that we chase as well as our county has what they call their bond fund, where they've done a public referendum to get money, through tax dollars that they distribute throughout the county for road infrastructure and parks infrastructure and trails. And so we're chasing all those opportunities. If there's some free money out there, it's better that I get it than you get it. So.
I'm now joined by Greg Peters, the Public Works Director in Anna, Texas, and we're joined by Ring Central this morning. Greg was out working with his crew while we were in town, and Greg, it'd be kind of a disservice to you and your team to not explain what was going on in Anna when I was visiting. So, real quick, run us through what you and your team were dealing with that day.
Sure. Yeah. So most folks in Texas recall, because it was just last month, we were hit with some pretty cold weather. And I know in a lot of our country, our public works folks around the nation are, ready and prepared and have equipment to deal with that. We are ready and prepared, but we don't always have the equipment in Texas that some of our friends further north have. So my staff were really focused on some prep work before the cold weather hit. mainly focused on putting down brine on our major roadways. We were also focused on going around salting the entryways to our public buildings. And then while Matt was there, we were doing a lot of sanding. Our crews were out with our dump trucks and our sanding equipment to put down sand on our major roadways to try to at least provide some level of traction for folks that are having to travel that day. Obviously, we highly recommend to all of our neighbors in Anna, that's what we call our citizens, to stay home when we have those type of road conditions. But we recognize that people do have to get out, people have to get to work. And so we do everything we can to prepare for and accommodate for that.
Anna is growing, but it's still a small town. What are the biggest challenges of the public works operation there?
So, I think right now, some of our biggest challenges are meeting the infrastructure needs of growth. Sewer is a huge need in our community. Roads are a huge need in our community. We have a lot of county roads that are 2-lane asphalt roads. Obviously, we're going to need more water. But I would say the other thing that oftentimes gets overlooked that's really important to us is making sure that we address the needs that already exist in the community. We have aging infrastructure that's already in place. And so we got to be careful and make sure that as we focus on all this growth, we're also paying enough attention to taking care of the older water lines, the older sewer lines, and the older roads that are already in need of repairs. And so it's really important for us to have a balancing act there. We can't get too caught up in only addressing growth concerns and forget about all of that aging infrastructure. Because if you don't, what ends up happening is you have a lot of aging infrastructure and you're overwhelmed by it in the future. So
a lot of those things that you kind of touched on require money, and the budget season never seems to end with public works. What are your priorities? What are your biggest priorities when it comes to building your budget?
Well, that's a really good question. So our priorities are actually changing. And what I mean by that is that we've put together a 5-year plan for our public works department. So I feel like it starts with planning out your staffing needs for a 5-year plan, and then planning out your equipment needs for the 5-year plan. But then the most important part that I think, I want to touch on is the materials that those people you hired need to get the job done. So yes, they need equipment, but we also have to really think about, okay, well, how much asphalt are we going to need to buy this next year? And we really try to come up with a step-by-step approach and say, okay, we can get this much done over the course of the year. And so then we use that data to then back roll and say, we're going to do this many projects, and that's going to require this much material. That, to me, that's really important for us to figure out and make sure that we can work and get 100% workload done for a full 12 months.
Anna is, independent in a lot of ways for a small town. Does Anna have any service agreements with any adjacent towns?
So that's a good question. One of the things that we're working on right now is a regional sewer treatment solution. And so Anna is sort of the larger city of our immediate area. And so what we're working on is to build a new regional wastewater treatment plant that we would own and operate. But with that, we've developed specific partnerships with the cities of Van Alstyne and Weston, and then also all of the unincorporated communities that are starting to pop up out in the county that are outside of our city limits. And so what we're doing is we're putting together a lot of these service agreements that say, hey, look, we will provide you wastewater treatment so that your developments can happen, your communities can grow. And right now we're actually working on what those rate structures are going to be.
Greg, like I said, you've been very generous with your time
Sure.
today and taking me around Anna with you and Jim and Francis. So thank you. I'll let you get back to work. I'm sure you've got a lot to do.
All right. Well, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And, I hope that some of this information, the folks out there in APWA will find it beneficial. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Have a good day, Greg. Thank you.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Bye-bye. I want to thank everyone at Anna, Texas for keeping me safe while I was in town during the winter weather. Especially want to thank Jim Proce, the city manager, Greg Peters, the public works director, and finally, Francis LaRue for helping me out with all logistics coming into town.